Hello, welcome to CivilNet's live program about the borderline. My guest today is Mr. Vladimir Karapetyan. He is the former Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesperson, and he is currently responsible for foreign relations for the opposition Armenian National Congress here in Armenia. Mr. Karapetyan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
We asked you to come to our studio today because of the recent flare-up of tensions along the line of contact between Karabakh and Azerbaijan, and also on the international border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The incidents have been going on now for about a week. It has been the worst since the 1994 Russian-brokered ceasefire. We have not seen such tension in 20 years. In your estimation, what is the reason for this recent escalation of tensions?
I agree with you that it's the first time since 1994 this level of escalation between Armenian and Azeri forces. Of course, we are confident that it started with Azeri's attempt to penetrate to Armenian part, which reaction by Armenian forces was adequate, but after that we have seen escalation of situation in both sides, from Armenian part as well as Karabakh and Azerbaijani part. Yesterday the Ministry of Defense of Armenia announced about the figures of death toll and wounded persons, and it's a worrisome picture. Hopefully the situation will calm down, and this information about possible meeting on a higher level on August 8-9 will contribute to the ease of the tension in the region.
I'm glad you mentioned that upcoming potential meeting of the presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan scheduled for later this week. Is this a failure of the negotiation process, this escalation in clashes on the border? Perhaps if negotiations were going in a direction that were, had some promise for both sides. Do you think we would have been seeing this?
Yes. You know that French president, while being in the region, invited presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan to hold meeting in Paris, and it was made by assistants and co-chairs, but there was no positive reaction from both sides, and recent statement by co-chairs made after separate meeting with foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan in Brussels showed that there was no agreement between sides about the possible meeting on the 8th of French presidency. Co-chairs stated that they assume that next meeting could hold on in New York in September during the General Assembly, which showed that there is no agreement to hold meeting within framework of co-chairs presidency. And after that, it was unexpectedly this announcement about possible meeting in Sochi. I assume that President of Russia needs some initiative to show to the world that they can play a peaceful role in the Caucasus region. That's why they invited Armenian and Azerbaijani president for the meeting. But I'm not sure that Azeri president will agree and we will go to this meeting.
I don't often like to talk about speculation, but following the media obviously is part of our job. And Russia's role in the recent escalation has been a topic of discussion.
In Armenia, in region?
In the region. On the back of Crimea, what's taking place in the Ukraine. Is there any potential role that you see that Russia would be playing?
I just can remind you the Russian position, behavior just after war in 2008 in Georgia, after just this escalation of situation in Georgia. Russia started to play more peaceful role, and just after the war in Georgia, they invited presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan to sign a memorandum in Meindorf. It was the first document highly criticized by us because of absence of Azerbaijani because of the absence of Karabakh president, signature of Karabakh president on under this agreement. But it was the role that Russia tried to play that time. And now also, I don't think that this is coincidence, initiative for Russia that just to show to the world that they can be a leader in this process and they can make calm the situation in the region.
You know, we've been living in a situation where we often coin what we often coin as no war, no peace.
Exactly.
We are not at war, but we do not have peace. And the incidents of this past week have really raised the level of anxiousness, anxiety in the region. Now, it's no secret that the Azerbaijani president and the administration over the last 20 years have been using a very specific kind of rhetoric, a lot of threatening rhetoric. We are ready to go to war, we are prepared for war, whereas the Armenian side tends to always want to find a peaceful solution, even though, as you mentioned earlier, the Armenian armed forces respond adequately to any kind of infiltration attempt.
I believe that after the statement of Levon Petrosyan, we started to respond more actively than it was on the first days.
Right. And you know, when we were talking earlier before we came on air, you said something that we hear quite often, that truth is the first victim of war.
Yes, exactly.
I'm trying to find the answers to what the truth is today. Do you think that with the war rhetoric that comes from Azerbaijan, from the administration in Baku, with Armenian response to Azeri aggression, with these very polarizing statements from different sides, and from the failure perhaps of finding a process, a journey that will lead to peace, how do you see these events playing out in the near future?
I agree with you, and we are seeing rhetoric, specific rhetoric from Azerbaijani sides, but I think that Armenia is one of the contributors to that kind of rhetoric, because the policy which provides Azerbaijan gives some results for them. The policy of blockade, the policy which isolates Armenia, and we know that in this condition, instead of developing democracy, instead of developing civil institutions, developing our economy, on all these levels we have retreat, and Azerbaijan sees that Armenia is suffering from economical conditions, suffering from the lack of democratization. That's why it seems to me that if there will be no change, if there is no change in Yerevan, in Armenia's policy, Azerbaijan will continue the same rhetoric, the same policy, the same pressure, and you know that they accompanied with another Turkish state, with Turkey, and only possibility for us to stop this aggression I can't find another word, because blockade is mentioned like a form of aggression according to UN documents. Until there is serious changes in our country, this kind of behavior of Azerbaijan will continue.
Well, the same could be said for Azerbaijan. It's interesting, we talked about parallels earlier. Today we are witnessing in Azerbaijan a very serious crackdown on human rights defenders. The case of Leyla Yunus and her husband, and recently a number of other human rights advocates were arrested. There is a media clampdown in Azerbaijan. There's I would say the institutions of democracy are far less developed there than they are here in Armenia, and civil society is almost non-existent. So both countries are facing huge challenges.
Okay. In that case, I would remind you the recent visit of President of European Commission, outgoing President, Mr. Barroso, made a couple of months ago to Baku. I was following his speech made in Azerbaijan. There was no critics about what you mentioned.
But
there was
why?
No
Is it not clear?
Because
is it not clear why there was no criticism?
No, for me it's clear because I was in politics and I know the interest of European institutions. Just after the strategic decision to diminish purchases of oil and gas from Russia, they started to look for another sources of energy for them. And just after this decision, Barroso arrived to Baku. And my point is that Baku can afford himself to pressure on its civic institutions. Baku, Aliyev can afford pressuring political life, opposition, but it's not the case for Armenia. The only way to survive is developing democratization of country, democracy, and that it's what Armenian National Congress is fighting for.
Well, I think that is something that everybody in civil society, in the media in Armenia is fighting for, to establish those institutions of democracy, freedom of speech. That is what we work toward. And hopefully that will help us in the processes that we need to face in the coming days and months and years.
That's why I am always happy to be your guest, to contribute to this aim you are fighting for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind my viewers that my guest today was Vladimir Karapetyan. He was the spokesperson for the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Armenia, and he is currently responsible for the Foreign Relations Department of the opposition Armenian National Congress. Thank you for following CivilNet.